so much, Tanya. Thank you, Mode. It's so great to be back here at Lead Dev. I think this is my second time speaking and my third time attending. And if this is your first year, you are in for a treat. You're going to learn so much. This is going to be a great 2 days. All right, so you're probably wondering what is the StaffPlus Performance Cliff? And so since this talk is called Mind the Gap, I'm going to kick things off with a train-themed story about commuting. Okay, so this is a picture of North Station in Boston, Mass. I've been a full-time remote for about 10 years now, but way back in the midst of time, I used to take the Fitchburg commuter rail line every day, and I would get on the train, and I would take it into Boston, and I would go to my office, and I would sit in my desk, and then I would turn around, and I would do that all over again on the way home. And now, if you've ever done a daily commute yourself, you know that you really optimize everything. You know exactly where to stand on the platform. You know exactly what car you're going to get on. You know exactly where to get off so that you have the shortest walk possible through the station. And eventually, the whole process becomes such a part of you that you don't even pay attention to the stops on the train anymore. You don't listen to the conductor. You just know exactly what to do. You barely even look up, right? So one day, I actually had to take the train home from Cambridge, Massachusetts. I got on a different stop. This is Porter Square. And it was a total disaster. I got lost on the train. I had to run to the platform. I got on. I sat in a chair, any chair, right? It didn't matter. And then I kind of went phew, and I zoned out, and I started reading my book. And you can probably guess what's going to happen from here. Yeah, at one point I looked up and I saw my station fading away into the distance. And to add insult to injury, I had actually gotten on an express train that was skipping the next 7 stops. So I had to call my husband and have him come and pick me up and bundle up the infant and the toddler and come out to the middle of nowhere and get me. And it's kind of funny, right? You would think it's the same train. I know how to ride this train. But just one stop later completely threw off my entire rhythm. It was almost like I was on a different train. Now, in case it's not blatantly obvious, this story is a metaphor for what happens as you grow in your career as a software engineer. Generally, the map that you follow when you grow from junior to senior and into staff is pretty clear, right? Your job is to make your team successful. You're focusing on technical execution. But then somewhere around staff or senior staff, your scope shifts, and suddenly you're responsible for not just one, but probably many teams in an org. And then ultimately, you're responsible for the success of the entire company. At this level, everything changes, right? It's actually a totally different map. And navigating it requires a completely different set of skills. So this shift can be really hard. Now, I've had mentees and peers that I've talked to who've gone through this, and the conversation that we have is always the same, right? I feel lost. I'm overwhelmed. I feel like I don't know what I'm doing. I feel like I'm failing. Maybe I should just give up and go back to my old role because I can't do this, right? I feel so alone. So how many of you in this room have kind of felt that way? Yeah, see? Look around. You are not alone, right? We are not alone. I think that this kind of moment of struggle is so much more prevalent than we like to admit. And a lot of people hit this point and they really struggle and they question themselves. And in their worst case scenario, they fail or they burn out. So I recently learned about the similar concept in gifted children called the performance cliff. That's where the name of this talk comes from. So Dr. Matt Zakreski is a clinical psychologist who works with gifted and neurodiverse children and teenagers. And this graph kind of demonstrates what the performance cliff is, right? So as kids grow in school, the difficulty level continues to get harder. And the expectation, the white line, is that they're going to continue to grow their skill sets to match the increased difficulty. Gifted kids, however, do pretty well. And then around 7th or 10th grade, they kind of fall off of this cliff. Now, why did that happen? Well, Up until that point, they've been relying on their natural, innate skills, right? They haven't had to build up skills like study habits, time management, asking for help, grit, resilience. But you need these skills in order to progress to the next level. And their grades tank, and along with it, their self-esteem, because when you've been doing really, really well, doing the same thing, it feels awful to suddenly be struggling. You start to question yourself. Am I not actually smart? Why is this so hard for me? Now, I'm not saying that everybody here is gifted or that in order to get up to an org level scope, you don't have to study anything, you don't have to learn anything. Like, of course, it's very, very hard. But I think that we experience our own version of this performance cliff because, what got you here won't get you there. The skills that got you to this point, technical execution, writing code, shipping projects, scaling your impact across the team, these are not the things that are going to get you to the next level. And I don't think we talk enough about how disorienting this is. Another thing that makes this big transition really hard is you kind of lose the rhythm, right? So team level work, kind of like riding the train, has a very predictable cadence. You kick off a sprint, you write some code, you review some PRs, you move JIRA tickets across a board, you run a retro, and you repeat that every week. And that's kind of like a big oversimplification, right? It's more than that. But the work that you're doing on a team is very highly structured, and there's very clear ways that you measure success, right? Like you move a JIRA ticket to the done column, and that gives you this tangible feedback that you're making progress. Either the tests pass or they don't pass, right? But org level work has this totally different rhythm to it. The problems are messier, the timelines are way, 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 way longer, the outcomes are harder to measure. You're juggling like a lot of different work streams all at once, often in systems that you might not own. You're trying to influence without authority. Maybe you're proposing tech-wide changes or org-wide changes. And these are things that take months to show results. These are things that, you make progress by having dozens of little conversations along the way. And those don't give you that dopamine hit that you get from writing code, right? It's like a much different process. You don't feel like you're done. And when you've been used to constant forward motion, that can feel so uncomfortable. So speaking of constant forward motion, oh gosh, okay. This is like the old version of my slides. That's okay. Sorry, technical difficulties this morning. I re-uploaded the new ones. I'll keep going. Anyways, so this picture is from a Mission Impossible movie where they drove a train off of the cliff. So here, I'm just going to skip this slide because we don't need that now. Okay, so the phrase that I used earlier of what got you here won't get you there actually comes from the title of a book by this executive coach named Marshall Goldsmith. And in this book, he has a list of the 20 bad habits that hold leaders back. And that's a lot of text, and we're not going to read them. You can take a picture. But I very much encourage all of you to go back and pick up this book and read about it and dig into them individually. But because we are short on time, we can boil all of these down to just one thing: ego. These are all things that we do to preserve our own sense of self. Making yourself look smart, clinging to control, needing to be right, not recognizing others. These are things like that preserve our own ego. But in order to be successful, you really have to let go of your ego. And I love this quote from the book. Successful people become great leaders when they learn to shift the focus from themselves to others. And I want all of us to really internalize this, because this is fundamentally what it means to move from a team scope to an org scope. This is what it means to become more senior. It's less about what you can accomplish alone, and the more it is about how well do you enable other people to succeed. Right? You can't own all the systems. You can't write all the code all by yourself. It's just not possible. So you need to figure out, how do you make sure that other people are set up for success so that ultimately the company is set up for success, right? It's not about you. But the kind of perverse thing about getting up to this level is, you're not on a team anymore. You don't have other ICs around you. So you kind of feel like you're on this island all by yourself. It's very isolating. It's very lonely. So the way that we get past this is by, kind of starting by making a map of all of the different people that you need to interact with and build relationships with in your job. There's the people that are kind of within your org chart, like your boss. There's the managers that report to your boss, because you probably report to a senior director or director or VP who's a manager of managers. And then there's all of the ICs that report to those managers. Then on the other side, outside of your org chart, you have other senior leads who maybe even are like in cross-functional things like product design that you need to build relationships with. And then you have your peer ICs who are kind of doing the same role and are at the same level, but are in a different part of the org chart than you are. And very likely you maybe have another community of like subject matter experts who like do the same subject matter as you. So, like at Square, for me, that's the 300 web engineers across all different teams. So for each of these different groups, you have a different goal and different ways that you're gonna wanna build a relationship for them. And the best way to build that relationship is gonna be different for every group. So we'll go over these one by one, and we'll start with the other ICs. So so one of the hardest things about making this shift is that, like I said earlier, you don't really have a team anymore. So it's now your job to go out and make a team for yourself. My co-tech lead and I, Charlie, hi Charlie, we actually have a daily stand-up for 15 minutes every day, just so we can kind of feel like we're on a team together. Maybe you have a Charlie, maybe you don't, but like you can go out and find your team. Go out and find the other ICs who are doing the same job as you. Set up regular meetings with them, connect, learn, get advice. The thing that this is going to unlock for you is there's this Japanese business process called nemawashi. If you haven't heard of nemawashi, it's called, it means laying the roots. And so the idea with nemawashi is that before you put an idea out before a big group, you kind of talk to stakeholders, you get alignment and you get buy-in before you make a big proposal. And you do that so that you can be more successful in your proposal at the end. And so if you have a network of other peer ICs, then you can practice nemawashi with them, and you can get your ideas vetted early, and you can get your ideas made better. All right, I had these in a different order, but that's okay. We're gonna roll with it. So team ICs. So the worst possible thing that you can do when you move into an org level role is continue to pretend that you're kind of sort of maybe not still on the same team that you were on. It's your job. You have to make connections with all of the other ICs on your teams. You need to make sure that they trust you, because you want them to come to you with their problems. You want them to come to you and ask you for help. And the way that you do that is you need to make yourself more approachable, because, surprise, you're actually like super, super intimidating now. People are afraid of you, like legitimately. People are afraid to bother you. They don't want to waste your time. They don't want to like, think that they're asking you a question that's beneath you. And you have to make sure that they trust you enough to get over that sense of like fear of, oh my God, you have all this institutional power now. Like, I can't talk to them. And the way that you do that is, set aside like bookable office hours on your calendar every week so that people can kind of set up these ad hoc conversations with you. Or, you can set up a monthly meeting with all of the tech leads and the staff engineers in your org. And that gives you an opportunity to kind of have this up and down communication where they can share with you and you can share back. And the one thing that's missing on the slide, which should be there, is you have to also be humble. That's the best way by far. You have the institutional power to admit that you were wrong. You have the institutional power to say that you don't have all of the answers. And you can model for other engineers and ICs what it means to say yes and to incorporate other people's ideas and feedback. And if they see you doing it, they're going to do it too. And they're going to trust you more. All right, so a lot of those same learnings for team ICs applies as well to all of the subject matter expert ICs in your org. So at Square, we actually have a web community hour where we take those like 300 different engineers across the org. We get together, teams share what they're working on. The web platform team shares like all of the latest updates. We geek out about React. And this is actually a superpower. I kind of harkening back to Spider-Man, I sort of joke that like my job is really to be the spider in the center of the web. So I know I have all these connections, I know all these people, and like, bzz, oh, there's a problem on this team over here. And then bzz, there's another problem. Oh wait, these are actually the same problem. And then you connect them to each other, and they go and they solve the problem together. Or maybe it's like, oh, all these problems, all here, there, everywhere. There's actually this other like kind of fundamental underlying problem that's causing all of these other problems that nobody's actually tried to go and fix. So like, let's go fix that. And that's like your capstone project, and that's how you get promoted is from finding those things. Connect the dots. It's a superpower. All right, so managers. Yeah, the managers, they're over there. But surprise, they're your peers now. Managers are your team. How did we end up in this situation, right? I don't want managers on my team. No, just kidding. I love you. But what this means is that if you haven't already taken the time to figure out how do managers think, then now is the time, right? What do they care about? What motivates them? What causes them to choose to put a project on their roadmap? Because this is like a really selfish thing, right? Like you want to have influence over them. You want to be able to drive the work that their team takes on. And in order to have influence, you need to have trust, and you need to have understanding, and you need to be able to communicate really well with them. All right, your boss. Yeah, they're probably the most important. But the interesting thing about when you get up to this level and you report to a VP or a senior director is that the relationship is much, much more of a partnership. And so you need to make sure that you're aligned. Align, constantly aligned, right? You need to know what their priorities are so that you can make sure that all of the work that you're doing is laddering up into their priorities and the org priorities. So you need to very, very clearly communicate that with them. And you need to also remember that this is a two-way street. It's a partnership. So you need to help them help you, and you need to be open and honest about what you need. And then finally, there's the senior leads in your company. So when it comes to other senior leads, what you really need to do is build a network. And I think that this can feel really gross, right? It's politics. Ugh, politics. Like, we're engineers. We hate politics, right? But we have to reframe the thought of politics because it's not a dirty word. It's actually your job. Politics is how you get things done in an organization made up of other humans, right? Like if you wouldn't ever design a system without thinking about, how does this system interact with all of these other related systems? And the same thing goes for people too, right? Like it's a system, right? You have to plug into it. And having these connections and these relationships are what is going to bring you influence without authority. The other side of it actually is like, when you're going through this process of trying to convince people that your ideas are the right ones, they're simultaneously going to be pushing back on you. They're going to be giving you context that you don't have. They're going to be telling you things about what's going on in their org that you don't know, or priorities for the design group that like maybe you didn't think about. So those connections are what allows you to create better ideas and to have a better outcome. All right, so we're about halfway through, so we'll come back to these. But these are what we've learned so far. And next, these are my two favorite memes from like the early 2010s. Like, haha, business. This is how I think about business people, right? Like whenever in my head I picture like a business person, I see these memes. And I have very bad news for you because we are all now business people too. We're going to have to understand what's a moat. How do we get from 0 to 1? We're going to have to voice over a crisp technical strategy. Like, right? But like, the business is your business, unfortunately. And you don't need an MBA, but like you do need to learn. And, I don't know if you can tell from the sarcasm. I really thought that I could just ignore this, but like the nonsense is something you need to know now. So follow the money, like understand what the business's technical priorities are, because the better you are at framing the work that you want to do in terms that the business understands and the business cares about, the more successful you're going to be. Okay, so another surprise. Oh, is this going to spin? Hold on. There we go. So you're now going to be responsible for independently managing your own work and your own time. And this is maybe the part that's hardest for me. But like Tanya said, I am a true believer in the bullet journal method because, you're going to have so much going on. It really is going to feel like spinning plates. And it doesn't matter what you do. I mean, use whatever system, have Claude generate like the perfect, ideal to-do app for you, whatever, it doesn't matter. But you just have to make sure that you keep tabs on all of the different things that you're working on, because nothing destroys all of the trust that you've built quite like failing to follow through on what you promised to do. Okay, it's question time. So how do you measure influence without authority? How do you measure the impact of a series of conversations? How do you calculate all the time and the money you saved because you nudged someone in the right direction at the right time? Well, this is maybe spicy, and you can try to convince me otherwise, but I don't think you can actually measure influence without authority. You can document it, though. You can document all of those conversations. You can document all the times that you nudged an architecture in the right direction. And the best way that I found to do this is I actually, and it also actually helps build that relationship and that two-way street with your boss. So I send him a weekly email, and I found that this works way better than like a hype doc or like anything that you kind of self-organize, because just having that like, oh my God, I have to send my boss this email at the end of the week, like makes me actually keep track of stuff and stay on top of it. And some things to note, like when you're reporting to someone at that level, you really have to communicate the way that they do. So you have to use bullets, not paragraphs. You have to be really focused on, it's not just like a list of what I did. It's like, what was the impact? What was the outcome? What's the high leverage things that you're working on that are moving their goals forward? You also need to be really, really clear whenever you need something from them. You have to help them help you. Because they don't have a lot of time. So if they're going to put aside time for you, you need to tell them that. And finally, like you need to be really honest and transparent. If there are risks, if there are people risks, if there are tech risks, you need to tell them like right up front so that you can get out in front of it. Holding on to that is like the worst thing that you can do. Okay, so we haven't had a train-related thing in a little while. So this is cheesy, but you got to hop on the learning train. I asked my New York friends for like a good joke about the L train, and like don't ask numbtots about the trains because they will tell you way too much. Like there were no jokes. It's okay. So insert New York L train joke here. Okay, so anyway, so the good news is you're all here, right? You're all in this room. You're all invested in learning. But once you get to this level, you really need to invest as much time and energy and care into building out these new skills that we've been talking about. And just as much time should go into that as you're putting into learning about new code, right? And if you haven't read Tanya's book, go back, go read Tanya's book. It's a very, very, very good book. It's a masterpiece. But then the flip side of that is that you're the conductor of the train now. This is you. You are here. And I know, kind of Tanya and Mo already kind of touched on this, but with all of these rapid changes of AI and everything coming in, it really feels like it's unsure what the future of software engineering is. But let me tell you, I've tried to vibe code, and we're not going anywhere. AI is not a systems thinker. It cannot learn. It cannot grow. It cannot reason about the code. Why are you writing this code? Not just, write the code. It's they don't, the size of its understanding of a system is as big as its context window, and that's it. So we need senior level skill sets more than ever. I'm really afraid of what's going to happen to the industry like in 5-10 years if we don't bring up junior engineers and teach them all of these hard-won lessons that we have learned out there like doing the thing. So we all have a responsibility to go back and make sure that we're modeling, that we're mentoring, we're sponsoring, we're growing that next generation of senior ICs and leaders to come up behind us. Okay, so here's our list of how we're going to avoid falling off the cliff. I'm running low on time, so just take a picture. And then finally, the cheesiest thing that I could come up with, and it should say, I think you can, right? I think you can do it. I believe in you. You're here. You're obviously you want to learn. You're not alone. You have all of the people in this room. This is your team now if you don't have a team at work. We're your team. And we're here to support each other, and we can learn together. And I'm very, very excited to continue to learn with the rest of you as we're here for the next 2 days. And thank you. You can find me on the internet. Scan this QR code. We are hiring at Square. We especially need senior ICs, so come work with me. And if you want to learn about bullet journaling on my website, Sylor-Miller.com, I have a blog post about how to use a bullet journal as a software engineer. So thank you so much.